Hello everyone, Lytro Storm here, and today I'm going to be covering a what if from Total Drama Pahkitew Island. Regardless about how people feel about this season, I absolutely loved Ella more than anything. So I wanted to find some way she could make it farther, and it turns out having her end Sugar's insane grudge against her is a great way to do that. So that's what we're going to be doing. What if Sugar and Ella were friends? The perfect episode for this change to begin is episode 4, where Ella makes 3 attempts at trying to appeal to Sugar. She offers her a seat at the end, which Sugar hates. She comforts Sugar by saying Rodney might think that she's the second prettiest girl, which Sugar hates, and she says that she firmly believes they were meant to be friends, which Sugar hates. So all we gotta do is lower Sugar's stupidity a little bit, so she still hates the first gesture and dislikes the second one, but thinks Ella might not be trying to screw her over earlier. So on the third one, she feels a little bit bad. And then, when Ella says she wants to get rid of whatever is keeping her and Sugar from being friends, she doesn't use the term I firmly believe, since Sugar hated that canonically. This last one finally gets through to Sugar, making her end their one-sided feud, and hugging Ella out of regret. Now this isn't to say Sugar would fully forgive Ella, as I'm sure she'd be thinking about an alliance to some degree, especially since we know she noticed Dave and Sky later on, and wanted to plan against that. But it's not like Sugar's incapable of friendship, as she does really like Leonard early on in the season. So I'd consider this kind of like a half friendship, half BS to get Ella into an alliance. I also feel like the stress from the shocks would kind of play a role, as it's an event they're going through together, so Sugar would be more accepting of their friendship. Because of Ella getting through to Sugar, Chris wouldn't think she's lying, so he gives Musquack a point, meaning it'd be 4-3, so there'd be no tiebreaker. But Rodney did still cause his team the most hassle, so he gets voted off the same way. In episode 5, Sugar would try and talk strategy with Ella, who's more focused on their actual friendship. This serves as a hindrance to Sugar, but she sucks it up in order to keep her alliance together. Ella wouldn't be trying so hard to suck up to her, but Sugar wouldn't be as hyped when facing Sammy, since she can't pretend that she's Ella. So Sammy and Scuba Bear would slam Sugar easier. Sugar would notice Ella's liking to Dave and wouldn't like it since it makes Ella more loyal to someone else. She also doesn't recommend Ella sing to Chris after he says she can't sing, because she doesn't want her to get eliminated. The Ella-Dave thing might serve as an issue, but luckily it resolves itself since Dave basically just tells Ella he likes Sky. Sugar does still try to convince Sky that Dave flirts with all the other girls in order to put a target on his back though. When Ella explains that Dave likes Sky, and Sugar comforts her, saying that Dave is flirting with everyone, so she shouldn't feel too bad about it. Ella is still sad, but not as much, since she has Sugar as a friend. Sugar does still recommend Ella sing to the bear, as it's a multi-pronged thing. She'd save Dave, and probably feel better after doing what she loves to do, sing. And since Sugar likes Ella, there'd be no ignominious note to Chris that she sang. And you could argue Chris would just know anyway because of the cameras, but he implies that the note is what told him. Usually Chris knows all due to the cameras, however I think there was at least one time when he was unaware of some event despite it happening on camera. And usually if it happens, it'd be on camera unless it's a dream or in a person's mind, but I can't think of one right now. But also, we're just gonna assume that Chris wouldn't know anyway, since the what if wouldn't really matter if we just booted Ella in the same episode with no changes. So we're gonna say that Ella is safe, which means Team Ginosewak would have to send someone home. Luckily, Chris actually reveals it before taking Ella out, so we can easily deduce that Max would have been kicked here. This causes some major changes to the next episode, as Max had a very crucial role. Sean turns down Sugar's alliance offer, which leaves her with the idea of having Ella make an offer to Sean. Ella agrees, but given that she's not very good at strategy, she's kinda just fumbling, and Sean would just agree out of sympathy, annoyance, and because Ella's nice. Without Max, I'm uncertain of which team would get the good bag of stuff. Sky arrives at her bag at a similar time, so she clearly wanted to open that one. But Max was the only one to even move toward the other bag, so either Scarlet or Ella would try to open it, but I'd say it's Scarlet personally. Without Max heading there, she'd just go for it to make herself more noticeable to her team. After all, if they lose, it literally only takes 2 votes to eliminate one of them. Topher and Jasmine get lost together, but Scarlet is now alone without Max. Scarlet tries to run from the crocodile being chased, but Max's screams aren't there to cause the stalactites to fall, so the crocodile would just chase Scarlet until she goes through a small tunnel. This means she never finds out the crocodile is mechanical and doesn't get the idea to take over the island. Ella would be equally as traumatized as everyone else when they find out that they escaped through a confessional booth. As for Scarlet, she'd probably be the only person to escape the correct way since she didn't find the elevator. Now, while Chris does originally state that the whole team has to cross the finish line, he obviously didn't anticipate everyone having such wild escape routes. So him being glad that someone followed his rules, he rewards Scarlet with her team's victory. Maybe Chris only gives her the dinner chef prepared though in order to make it kind of balance out with the original rules. And while it was a no elimination originally, and I did think to just have Sky move to Scarlet's team as a reward which sticks closer to the canon, it could also work if it was an elimination. But I thought it was worthy enough to split into two paths, so I covered both. Continuing from here, we'll give you the version where I eliminate someone, as it'll work better for the game if I do. You'll see why in the next two episodes, but for now, just trust me. But if you want to see what would happen if I did just switch Sky to the other team instead of an elimination, skip to the next chapter of the video, they should pop up. However, this one will be taking the elimination, as I said. So Sugar gets Ella to vote for Dave after hyping up all of her negative feelings and telling her it's the best course for their friendship. But the next step is getting Sean on board, which Ella has to handle herself, as Sugar obviously won't succeed. Sean does not like Sugar. Once again, Ella tries to help Sean understand, but Dave and Sean are friends, and Sean doesn't really like Sugar. He's also unaware that Sugar is technically part of his alliance with Ella, since Ella's kind of in the middle of the alliance, so he'd vote for Sugar anyway. Dave and Sky also do, which puts the votes at 2-3 against Sugar, meaning she's out. She does take the moment to recognize Ella as her friend, which is nice though. The next episode would then have Sky on her proper team, and Topher would have to eat a rotten egg since Sugar isn't around. I imagine Ella would be able to easily keep her baby quiet as Max did canonically. Since they are in the same team, Sky helping Dave makes perfect sense, and he'd probably try to make more advances on her. Sky being on their team only helps them, while Topher still ruins things for his own, meaning he'd be voted off after his whole charade with Chris. The merge would now occur, and Sky decides to use this in order to cut things off with Dave. She'd also be the person seeking since she was second best after Sugar, and I don't think Ella would be too great at drinking the juggy chunks. Ella tries to comfort Dave through the Sky rejection, since she knows exactly how it feels, since Dave did it to her. Also, Max once again accidentally helped Scarlet find out more stuff about the island being canonical in this episode, but he's not here to do that. This is very important to the next episode. Jasmine takes the win due to Sean's sacrifice, but nothing changes since Dave runs the campaign to get himself voted out. In the original episode, Chris says Sky would have gone if Dave didn't vote for himself, but I'd just say Ella votes for whoever Max did canonically. She could either be bitter towards Sky for taking Dave only to break his heart anyway, after befriending Sugar and learning what being bitter is, or she could be upset at Dave for rejecting her and follow Sugar's original plan of booting Dave. This would be a way to avenge Sugar, or at least have some sort of plan, as I imagine Ella would have trouble coming up with one on her own. So yeah, I could see it going either way on who she votes for, so we're still gonna eliminate Dave here. Since Max didn't reveal a control panel, Scarlet doesn't puke on a control panel, so we don't get the challenge to save the island. This episode is what led to Scarlet going full evil and got herself and Max eliminated. But since it's not happening, that is why I chose to have an elimination early. That way, we don't have to force a challenge later to be a double elimination, since Scarlet and Max both got eliminated next. Alright, so now that there's no Scarlet taking over the island, I've got to come up with a whole new challenge for an episode. I thought a lot about the different things I could do, like skip it, but I ultimately managed to come up with something pretty cool. It took some help from the guy who edits most of my videos, but we figured it out and came up with something that fits the story very well. So the next episode sees Chris announcing a revamp of the Princess Pride challenge from Total Drama Action. This excites Ella, who presumably loved that challenge, and it'd be a perfect fit for her to be the princess. However, Chris knows this, and he hates Ella, so he chooses Scarlet instead, which is part of the reason why he chose this challenge, so he can make Ella upset. This obviously throws her off, as she doesn't even fit that role at all, which is part of why Chris chose her. But now Scarlet gets placed into a tower, and the rest of the cast have to make their way up to her. But this is where the interesting twist comes. It's Scarlet's job to stop them, using a control panel to move things around and change the environment. This is a really clever use of the mechanical island, and also sets up Scarlet finally realizing it must be artificial. So during this challenge, we'd see her evil side come out a lot more as she tries to stop everyone from reaching her. The first person to the top of the tower gains immunity, or if Scarlet manages to stop them, then she gets it. Ella is sad that she didn't get picked, but Sky realizes her situation. Now that Jasmine and Sean are in full swing, she has to team up with Ella if she wants a shot at winning. So she gets Ella determined by hyping her up, showing Chris that she's talented enough to be a princess. The two work together while Scarlet tries to break up both duos using different things like rocks and trees to block their paths or hit them. At the end, Scarlet is letting loose, realizing that she could just take over the island now, and she's already taken Sean and Jasmine out of commission. The only ones left are Sky and Ella, but Sky is the bigger threat out of the two, so she guns to take out Sky, but their teamwork allows Ella to make it up the tower and claim immunity. Scarlet goes crazy with anger, ready to start taking over the island, but Chris stops her and eliminates her before she can. And so we've basically accomplished the same goal of the original episode with Scarlet being evil and taking over the island, but we had Ella and made it fit her theme, which is pretty cool. The next challenge is the race up the mountain, which follows a similar structure to the canon one. There's no sugar though, so that means Sky has to partner up with Ella once more in order to beat Jasmine and Sean. The two are able to keep up a little bit, since Ella isn't weighing Sky down like Sugar did canonically. They go through the bear cave with Sky knowing there's only one way out of this. Ella has to sing. But Ella reminds her that if Chris finds out she sang, she'll be eliminated. So Sky quickly tosses a rock at the screen Chris used to talk to them, and Ella begins singing to the bears. She's able to soothe them, which allows the two to escape the cave. Jasmine falls on top of them shortly after, with Sean being announced as the winner. But since Sugar isn't there to knock over the tree onto Jasmine, I think we know what's in store. Both Sky and Jasmine are far more fit and equipped to face challenges like this than Ella is. So sadly, Ella would be the last person to cross, meaning she'd be eliminated here. And even if she wasn't, it's not like Chris couldn't put two and two together. Sky wanted Ella to sing, destroyed his screen, and then they escaped the bears. I sure wonder what happened. This puts Jasmine in the place of Sugar for the next challenge, which forces me to think of what challenge Jasmine would create, but we'll get to that in a minute. First, let's cover how everyone else would do in Sky and Sean's challenges. Sky still gets first in her own challenge, but it seemed like Sean had more opportunities for failure than Sugar did. Her only issue was the bees, which she didn't even have trouble with for some reason. Plus, Jasmine should be way faster, since she's just more agile and fit, but also isn't collecting the hurdles to slow her down. So I'd say she gets second, while Sean gets third. The next challenge is Sean's, but without Sugar there to knock Sky off, she'd definitely come in first place. This means she's guaranteed a spot in the finale. Sean fails due to the monkey with the chainsaw, and Jasmine really can't do anything about that, so once again, she claims second. This means that unless Sean wins and Jasmine loses the next challenge, he's out for good. And now it's time for Jasmine's challenge. Given that she's like a stereotype of Australians, I'm sure it'd be something to do with taming or catching animals, which she would obviously excel at normally, but Chris doesn't have any normal animals to spare. He does have those robot ones though, which they'd all be tasked with capturing as an added twist. This change perfectly ruins Jasmine's easy victory, meaning Sky and Sean actually have a chance here. But given Sean's failure to plead with the robot monkey earlier, yeah, it's not looking too good for him. And like I said, he'd not only need Jasmine to get last, but he'd also need to get first just to tie things up. And the odds of that happening aren't very high, meaning I think the finale is Jasmine and Sky. Bro, put like a gif of Eminem over that was fire.
No, kill yourself.
Sean says his goodbye to Jasmine, hoping that she wins, and recontextualizes her thoughts on splitting the money. After all, now he's the one hoping to get half, so he'd realize how selfish he'd been in the confessionals before. In the finale, Jasmine probably ends up picking Sean as a helper since it might be rigged given how Sky got Dave twice, Sean got Jasmine, and Chris was ready to start causing drama between the duos. So that leads me to believe that it was rigged. He'd still do that, with Jasmine refusing any help from Sean after hearing what he said in the confessional. But when Chris says that if Sean and Dave can take down the finalists, they'll split the million, he knows it wouldn't be the same if he's not splitting it with her. So he refuses to mess with Jasmine at all, and Dave probably flips out on him for it, since he wants the money and that causes a fight between the two. Sky or Jasmine then win, with Sean apologizing to Jasmine and telling her what had happened, which leads to them making it up. So really, this path of the what if didn't change too much. Maybe the other one will. Okay, so this is the path with no elimination in episode 7, and since there's no elimination, Chris rewards Scarlet by taking someone from the other team and adding it to her team. And to break up Sky and Dave, he chooses Sky. He had a team swap in canon and chose Sky, so I don't see why he wouldn't here, especially since Muskwalk has a 5-3 lead since Max is gone. Also, it's pretty clear Chris chose to split up Sky and Dave and just used Max and Scarlet as a funny joke. But what's funny is that theoretically this works perfectly for Sugar, as now her alliance involves everyone but Dave. So in the next vote, her team can just target Dave and he's gone. I imagine Ella would be able to easily keep her baby quiet as Max did canonically. and she'd have that same one since she's basically a 1-to-1 swap with Max. Topher still ruins it for his team, and then gets taken out after his whole charade with Chris. Sadly for Sugar, even though Dave caused most of the problems for the team last episode, the merge still takes place, so her perfect elimination of Dave falls through. Ella tries to comfort Dave through the Sky rejection, since she knows exactly how it feels, since Dave did it to her. Also, Max once again accidentally helped Scarlet find out more stuff about the island being canonical in this episode, but he's not here to do that. This is very important to the next episode. Jasmine takes the win due to Sean's sacrifice, but nothing changes since Dave runs the campaign to get himself voted out. In the original episode, Chris says Sky would have gone if Dave didn't vote for himself, but I'd just say Ella votes for whoever Max did canonically. She could either be bitter towards Sky for taking Dave only to break his heart anyway, after befriending Sugar and learning what being bitter is, or she could be upset at Dave for rejecting her and follow Sugar's original plan of booting Dave. This would be a way to avenge Sugar, or at least have some sort of plan, as I imagine Ella would have trouble coming up with one on her own. So yeah, I could see it going either way on who she votes for, so we're still gonna eliminate Dave here. Since Max didn't reveal a control panel, Scarlet doesn't puke on a control panel, so we don't get the challenge to save the island. This episode is what led to Scarlet going full evil and got herself and Max eliminated. But since it's not happening, that is why I chose to have an elimination early. That way, we don't have to force a challenge later to be a double elimination, since Scarlet and Max both got eliminated next. Alright, so now that there's no Scarlet taking over the island, I've got to come up with a whole new challenge for an episode. I thought a lot about the different things I could do, like skip it, but I ultimately managed to come up with something pretty cool. It took some help from the guy who edits most of my videos, but we figured it out and came up with something that fits the story very well. So the next episode sees Chris announcing a revamp of the Princess Pride challenge from Total Drama Action. This excites Ella, who presumably loved that challenge, and it'd be a perfect fit for her to be the princess. However, Chris knows this, and he hates Ella, so he chooses Scarlet instead, which is part of the reason why he chose this challenge, so he can make Ella upset. This obviously throws her off, as she doesn't even fit that role at all, which is part of why Chris chose her. But now Scarlet gets placed into a tower, and the rest of the cast have to make their way up to her. But this is where the interesting twist comes. It's Scarlet's job to stop them, using a control panel to move things around and change the environment. This is a really clever use of the mechanical island, and also sets up Scarlet finally realizing it must be artificial. So during this challenge, we'd see her evil side come out a lot more as she tries to stop everyone from reaching her. The first person to the top of the tower gains immunity, or if Scarlet manages to stop them, then she gets it. Ella is sad that she didn't get picked, but Sugar assures her that they're both gonna show Chris who's boss. The duo then go ham on the challenge, and Sky is basically left alone against two duos. The contestants run toward the tower, with Scarlet trying to break up both duos, using different things like rocks and trees to block their paths or hit them. At the end, Scarlet is letting loose, realizing that she could just take over the island now, and she's already taken Sean and Jasmine out of commission. The only ones left are Sky, Sugar, and Ella, and Sky is furious at her situation and probably Sugar for messing with her during the challenge. By the end, Sky is caught up to the two, so Sugar ultimately chooses to hold her off. This allows Ella to make it up the tower and claim immunity. Scarlet goes crazy with anger, ready to start taking over the island, but Chris stops her and eliminates her before she can. So we've basically accomplished the same goal of the original episode, with Scarlet being evil and taking over the island, but we had Ella and Sugar's friendship develop further, and Ella got a win. Plus, it was all princess themed, so Ella and Sugar both had their dynamics shown. The next challenge is the race up the mountain, which kind of follows a similar structure to the canon one. Ella being there will remove Sugar trying to bond with Sky. This means Sky isn't held back at all by trying to help Sugar, so Sugar and Ella are basically in last for most of the race. Since Sky is ahead of two people, she has no reason to enter the cave for a shortcut, as only the person in last gets booted. This means Ella and Sugar have to enter the cave to hopefully catch up to Sky. Sugar breaks the screen Chris used to talk to them in the cave, and then yells at Ella to get singing. Ella sings to the bears, soothing them as they escape the cave. Sean still gets first place, with Sky catching up quickly. Jasmine falls on top of Sugar and Ella shortly after they exit the cave, and the three start moving quickly. Sugar accidentally knocks over a tree, which kinda traps Jasmine just like it did canonically. Seeing Jasmine hurt makes Ella kinda sad, and she doesn't want to leave her behind. However, Sugar tells Ella to hurry up, and then Jasmine starts walking with the tree on top of her, which allows Sugar to say, "See, she's fine." Ella then begins running again, beating Jasmine to the top, which means Jasmine is eliminated. However, since we've got an extra person here, Chris chooses to have it be a double elimination. Sean came in first place, so he gets to choose who to eliminate, and it should be painfully obvious who we'd pick. Sorry, Sugar, your time is up. As for the next episode, we've got to figure out how Ella being there instead of Sugar would impact the points and what kind of challenge Ella would do. But that shouldn't be too hard. I think Sky would still win her challenge with Sean getting second place, as Ella just wouldn't be as good as them as physical stuff. As for Sean's challenge, Ella is obviously going to fall behind again, but I could see her catching up after Sean falls off the tree. So Sky gets 2 wins, and now Ella and Sean are tied since both lost and got second once. Ella has a pretty easy challenge, a singing contest, which Chris broadens to just any music, as he doesn't want to hear more singing than he has to. So Sean can still do his armpit serenade, but Sky doesn't really have much. Maybe she could do a burping song, but yeah, she's coming in last, which doesn't really matter as she's already in first overall with 6 points. So she'd still have 7 here because she lost and gained 1 more point. It really comes down to Sean and Ella. Ella then performs her song, which would be fire if it's anything like her goodbye song, and while I would love to put Ella in the finale, realistically only Scuba Bear 2.0 and the intern would like it. Chris should probably hate it given his opinion of Ella so far, and the fact that Sean got a 9 from all 3 judges canonically tells you that he basically wins. So Ella gets blasted, and we get the same finale as in canon. But just as a bonus round, let's say Chris has an awakening moment with this song from Ella and realizes the beauty in her music, giving her the win. After that long character journey that she's gone on with Sugar, he starts to finally understand her. That then puts Sean in the canon, since he'd have 5 points overall, while Sky has 7 and Ella has 6. The finale would then be Ella versus Sky, with Sky getting Dave as a helper. In terms of who Ella's helper would be, I mean, it should be obvious. Read the title. Sugar would be determined to help Ella win, but would probably be trying to subtly convince her to share some of the money, which Ella would be oblivious to. At the end, Chris gets Sugar riled up against Ella by reminding her of all those times where Ella showed her up or disrespected her, which makes Sugar want to take Ella down. And while Sky should theoretically beat Ella in 1v1 every single time, Ella does have nature on her side, so I could totally see a feasible victory for her here. Sugar then breaks down, thinking that she might have badly hurt one of her only friends after the blizzard, and asks to be forgiven, which Ella obliges to because she's Ella. They hug, and the gang leave the island and Dave behind. But if you want to check out the other path where there was an elimination in episode 7, feel free to go back to the previous chapter. Anyway, after all of that, this has been What If Ella and Sugar Were Friends? As you can see, the changes are kinda big, but ultimately wrap up by the time you get to the finale. I definitely prefer the second version more, as it helps develop Sugar and Ella's duo dynamic a lot more, whereas the other forces Sugar to get cut early. But yeah, this is basically like a super what if video because I covered multiple different paths for this story, so I hope you guys liked it, at least one of the paths, and you can see just how much thought I put into this. But anyway, I hope you guys like it, and if you did, consider becoming a channel member to gain access to awesome perks and also have your name read out at the end of every video, like these fine people here. Savage, we don't have members anymore. I think our members left. Okay. Alright, let's cut this out. But as always, tell me if you like this video, comment your requests for future videos, and subscribe. Thank you for watching. Have a great day.